So why do officials miss calls? Let's get into it. Hello everyone and welcome to Oakman on Racing. I am Rob Oakman and I'll be your race director today. And we're going to look at why officials miss calls. So for all of us who've been drivers, we know what it's like to have an official miss a call. So why does it happen and what can officials do and series do working together to make things better? First, the why. Now this is one lap of the cadet class at Goodwood. This is race 12.
Green is out, green is out. Okay, we got a lawnmower. Everybody's still going.
In any given race, there are multiple packs of karts racing simultaneously, and an official can only watch one at a time. In this one lap, the field goes from crossing the line in a tight pack at about 2 seconds from first to last, to multiple packs covering over 12 seconds on the racetrack. As the last kart completes the first lap, the leaders are entering the third corner. A pack is entering the braking zone, one full corner behind them with more to come. Typically in club racing, there is one race director. They're covering stewarding, they're making sure everything happens on the racetrack, and this is for between 6 and 13 classes across, 4 or 5 sessions per class, making sure everything's on time on schedule, and this is all one person. Even most regional and national level racing will have maybe 2, if you're lucky, 3 assistants that are working with the race director that are helping out. Marshals are rarely experienced enough to be making calls on the racetrack. Responsibility is their corner. They can't be tracking packs of karts around the racetrack for you. Now the starter can help out depending on how experienced they are, but they also have other things to do. If you've called an infraction on the racetrack, they've got to get the flag, they've got to get the number board up, and they take precedent over covering the racetrack with the race director. And when you're looking at packs of karts on the racetrack, the other question becomes where should the race director be watching? Now, typically speaking, the priority is going to be up at the front of the pack. Well, if you've got 20 or 30 karts on the racetrack, you could have 10, 15 packs of karts. It is simply impossible for the race director to be watching the back and the front at the same time. As a race director gets experience, you can start looking around the racetrack for places where you can look past the lead karts towards the karts in the back. Remember, it's a compromise. It's something that experience can help, but it simply cannot solve all the problems. Another issue that race officials have to deal with is perspective. If you're positioned in a way that you can see the drivers coming towards you into a braking zone, you lose your perspective on how they are relative to each other side by side. It is literally why starters are placed up in towers. If you are positioned to the side of the track, you have a great view of where the karts are relative to each other and relative to the braking zone, but it is really difficult to judge where on the racetrack they are from the inside to the outside. So when it comes to race day, the officials have to decide where they want to officiate from, and everything has its compromises. For example, this is the view of the tower at Goodwood Kartways. A lot of people wonder why I don't stand up here. And as you move back and forth here, you start getting blind spots. You have to stretch to look down at the front straightaway. You have to move around as you're trying to see perspectives on different things. And you can imagine, when you've got a 20 or 30 kart field spread out over this racetrack, how are you going to be able to lose those blind spots and track everybody? You also notice that a lot of the braking zones are coming towards you. Even though you have the bonus of elevation, you lose a bit of that perspective on where the karts are relative to each other. I think it's too much of a compromise myself, which is why I stand down in corner 7. I believe you get a better perspective on the entire racetrack. You can also track the leaders through 4, 5, and 6 while glancing back in the field to cover the battles further back. When it comes to a track like Mosport, no matter where you stand on that track, there are blind spots that you simply cannot see. For example, if you are in the tower, the bowl and the top of the hill are blind spots. Stand up on the hill and you lose the bowl and you are miles away from the last few sets of corners. If you stand at the bowl, You lose the top of the hill, the S's, and again, you lose passing zones and perspective on the front straight. I used to like to stand at the end of the hairpin on the barrier for a bit of elevation, and I relied on the starter to spot the bowl for me. The top of the hill was a problem, but standing on the barrier made it at least able for me to see the entry to corner 3 and the exit. I did lose the center of the corner, but at least it was a compromise that I could live with. On a track like Shannonville, which is big and flat, you have no choice but to call from the tower. It takes you a long way from the action, but as you start to get lower, you lose perspective on the far end of the track. You lose those back corners. So if these issues exist, how can we make things easier for officials to do their job? Tracks can provide elevated positions where officials can make calls from. Anything that doesn't have obstacles in the way that block their view. Something that is easy as possible to see. Zoom booms and scissor lifts will fill in and can do a really wonderful job as long as you have a nice stable base and you're able to get nice and close to the racetrack. Series can provide more people and more technology, but of course more people and more technology costs money, which is to say that members will have to be charged more to cover that cost. Camera systems are amazing. I have used camera systems in the past. It was a wonderful experience to have them available, but they are expensive and very time consuming to deal with. You need somebody who understands the technology, and you need somebody who's able to make calls from a screen. Another thing series can do is be clear and define what it is that they expect from officials and how they want to handle missed calls. Some series believe that missed calls are just a part of the game, very much like soccer does. If a series wants to be more open that the officials are going to make mistakes, they can make it easier for drivers to find a remedy. Whether a series wants to leave misses and mistakes as part of the game, or if they want to make remedies available to the drivers, they both have their pluses and minuses, and none of them are perfect. And lastly, for the drivers. Yes, you drivers. Know the rules of the game. There is no point in complaining that there was a call missed or that you were given a bad penalty when you don't know what the rules are. Know that the officials don't want to make that mistake. And most officials want to make it right. But understand what kind of series you're in. Is it a series that just accepts that? Or is it a series that's going to give you the tools to try and make it right? If you know which one you're in, you know what your next steps are. But what about the officials themselves? What can they do? Well, first, you've got to try. Accept that you're going to make mistakes, but try not to. Accept that you're going to miss calls, but do your best to catch what you can. Be willing to admit when you're wrong because it is going to happen. Choose your placement on the racetrack carefully. Try and keep your mind from wandering. Focus on the leaders, but pick your times to look back. Rely on your people whenever possible, and just do your best. Do your best. No series is going to be perfect. NASCAR, IMSA, IndyCar, Formula One, they have multi-millions of dollars worth of equipment. They have dozens of people looking at screens all over the place, and they all miss calls. They all make mistakes. If they can screw it up, what chances does a single race director watching a field of 34 karts have? That's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you want more content like this. Comment down below if there's a rule or something that you want me to talk about in the future, and we'll see what we can do. Till then, see you at the racetrack.